It's my great pleasure now to introduce our second speaker. That is my good colleague, Professor Sue Yeandle, who's Professor of Sociology at Sheffield University and the director, the founder and director of Circle. That's the Centre for International Research on Care, Labour and Equalities. Over to you, please, Sue.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you everyone for coming along to listen and to participate in this very important debate, which I'm very pleased to be able to contribute to. I've called my short contribution Into the Future, a positive vision for adult social care, but I must say that Alan's painted a picture which really provides an excellent background to what I want to say, and I agree with every word that he's said, based on also my many years of studying this topic. Adult social care has been described as stuck in the past. Indeed, in the publicity for this very event, that was a term that was used. And frequently, I think many of us feel that it's got stuck in a permanent crisis. Many people working in the system and some of those who decide to leave it, particularly in home care, I think feel that the system is letting people down. And in my worst moments, what I fear is that we're moving towards a two-tier system where we might be able to provide really rather good care for those wealthy enough to be able to afford to pay generously for it, but that most people will have to make do with something very substandard if they get anything at all. And that's something that I think we all want to avoid. Now, as Alan's already mentioned, when the NHS was established in 1948, the importance of social care, and I define social care as support to live well in daily life, whatever your age or abilities, support for that and its importance was not well understood and was not planned for. Now, of course, the NHS has been vital in giving us longer lives, but inevitably as we survive critical illnesses and chronic conditions and accidents of various kinds, many more of us live lives affected by complex conditions and impairments. And it's in this sense, I think, that we can say that care emerged in the mid-late 20th century as a new social risk, and that over the past 70 years, care has gradually become, in the way that Alan has described, a marginal and still weak and limited, but in fact a social right. And that's the area that I think we want to emphasize and to press on. Much progress, of course, has been made, and Alan's mentioned the transformation of institutional care. And I remember that very well. As a young woman in my first job, before I started university, I worked in what was then horrifically called a mental subnormality hospital, where I worked as a nursing assistant on a ward for children with disabilities. And I shall never forget the shock I had when I saw the way in which they had to live. And we must never return to anything remotely like that. We've invented supported living, which has been a great development. We've decided that we must focus on personalised and dignified care, which is a really important move forward that was made some 20 years ago now. And in 2014, we passed a new piece of legislation, the Care Act in England, focused on wellbeing and prevention. We've decided that it's important that we respect and support unpaid carers, the families and others, neighbours and friends that Alan was speaking about a moment ago. And we've decided that choice and empowerment are the societal goals that we must reach for regarding disabled people. But things have, of course, gone badly wrong. And as the situation that Alan describes is absolutely correct. And COVID-19 has now made all the worst features of adult social care and the things that are wrong about the way it's resourced and funded and planned for and provided horribly visible to all of us. I think we would agree that central government has failed to put adequate resources in place, and that's a fundamental issue. Local authorities have consequently faced terrifying budget cuts. Alan's mentioned those as well, of course, unevenly spread across the country, when investment is in fact what was needed, not cuts. And great ideas, direct payments, personalised budgets, personal assistance support have been implemented in ways that in fact curbed and stifled their transformative potential rather than enabling them to actually deliver on their promise. Consumerism and market power and market choices were invoked as the changes and new values that we needed, when in fact what was actually required were flexible, accessible, reliable and timely personalised support, adequately funded and in a stable manner. So there is an awful lot that we need to change. So for local communities to deliver caring and effective support, I think it's important to recognise that there does still need to be an enforceable framework of national standards. And most importantly, I think it is vital that central government does its job. And in the first place, it needs to prioritise funding reform and the provision of adequate funds. And in the second, it needs to loosen its grip, allowing local choices and priorities to drive change. But national standards will need to be raised regarding the following. First of all, people's rights to support. Those can only be guaranteed, I think, at national level, and that's vital. We need to address the parlous situation of the care workforce, which has been bad and deteriorating now for decades. We need to address job quality, employment rights, career prospects, and to recognise the specialist skills that are involved in providing care to others, particularly in advanced old age and with some of the conditions and multi-morbidities that older people may have. And we need a national commitment to working to create enabling caring communities that encourage the emergence of flexible, supportive networks and ensure that no one is left to care or to live alone, exhausted, fearful, or depressed. Controls of the extraction of profit from care services are also something that I would like to see national governments address. But with those standards in place, what can local communities do to create a caring society that embraces all, leaving no one out? Well, here are some of the things I think would be important for a local approach. Strengthening volunteering and voluntary action. But that will need enhanced support, not just enhanced funding, although that will be vital, but also more information, better flows and communication between statutory services and what volunteers and voluntary action can achieve. And I think probably we need to start planning for that on 5-year cycles, both in terms of investment and of delivery of what's going to be provided, rather than the year-on-year funding that currently exists. We need to create connections and links between care and support services and small care businesses, including tech providers, so that they work together well, they cross-refer, both those they're looking after and supporting, and offer joined up support. We need also to learn from successes elsewhere, and there are many of these, not only in the UK, in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but also around the world. We need to think about developing dementia-friendly shops, cafes and leisure facilities, and some of this, of course, has already started, but it needs more investment and more resources. We need support to access welcoming open spaces, parks and gardens. We need, again, as others have done, to think about adapting living environments so they really work for older people and those with physical impairments and mobility difficulties. We need neighbouring schemes that will combat isolation and loneliness by linking generations and providing timely and practical support. We need effective and prompt connections between services, and we need home care support that's in a continuous two-way dialogue with primary care, with occupational therapy and with tech services, and of course with people being discharged from hospitals and in the weeks and months that follow that. We need reablement services that focus not just on the person and enabling them to perform specific tasks, but that enables them to reconnect with their networks, with the activities they enjoy, and with the values and choices that they themselves would want to make. We're going to need, I think, to create care and support planning teams at local level that can help people think ahead and prepare for the inevitable changes in advanced old age and at the end of life that they will face, and to help them to make and to express their own choices and to achieve their own later life goals. Now, I think all these things are important, partly because not only have I studied this subject for many decades, but I've also, of course, experienced the ups and downs of life and family situations across the years that have gone by. I have a sibling, my sister, who now has advanced MS, which she's had now for well over 35 years. She's been supported at home by her husband, so I've seen the caring that he can provide, and by teams of carers. And in Northern Ireland, where she lives, that service has been free and it's been delivered to her in a compassionate and caring way, which has made a huge difference to her quality of life. I have a father who was almost 100, who is living independently at home, but I see his increasing frailty, and I see the difficulty that he and I are experiencing in trying to get the right help at the right time, in the right way, in a way that is acceptable to him and that is kind and supportive and ready when he needs it. In what follows, my colleagues, Professor Matt Bennett and Dr. Kate Hamblin, who work with me in the Circle team at the University of Sheffield, will next speak. Matt's going to talk about some of our work on unpaid carers and the costs and consequences that they face and their experiences in the pandemic. And Kate's going to talk about her work on care and technologies, sharing her insights about how technology can be a tool to help humans provide better care. But I want to end with one final comment. Good care and support allows people to be themselves, to participate in chosen activities, and to be supported, whatever their bodily or mental capacities, with dignity and compassion. It enables them to live well and in harmony with their own culture and values. But it's not rocket science. We can do it. We can create caring, empowering communities for all. Thank you very much for listening.